All right, welcome back here on SportsLine. Phone lines open, continue to be open, 737-7767. We got some open slots for you, but Seth has been waiting for a while. Seth, we appreciate that. You're next up here on SportsLine.
Awesome. How are you, dude?
Doing well.
All right. I got two points I want to make.
Okay.
First point, Tennessee Titans are going number one pick in the draft. So a lot of these mock drafts are saying they're going to pick, either Laramie Tunsil or Joey Bosa. Laramie Tunsil, the offensive line we already have, they're very, very young. We do not need another person on that front line who is young and inexperienced. You were watching the Pro Bowl before it happened. Delaney Walker made a statement about that, saying the Titans don't need anybody else new on the offensive line. The offensive line is fine as long as they learn to gel together and play like a veteran group. Now, Joey Bosa, great pass rusher, great defensive end, but I think their defense is in great shape with Dick LeBeau running it. The Titans need to draft a running back. First pick of the draft. Now, that's very cliche to say, but they do. Somebody like Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, somebody who can gain yards, run hard. They wasted their second-round pick 2 years ago on Bishop Sankey. Been very unproductive. Need to cut him, get some salary, cap salary space. David Cobb had one good game against the Colts last game of the season. Fifth rounder. Honestly, doesn't look that promising. I mean, what do you think? We've got to have a running back.
I agree. I've said it for a while that they've got to go out and make something happen at the running back position. Couple things real quick. First off, David Cobb hurt a lot of last year. I don't know if anybody knows what we're getting long-term with David Cobb. He certainly showed some promise in the final game of the year against the Colts, but that's one game at the end of a season when you're not going anywhere. Bishop Sankey has been a huge disappointment to this point, but they're not cutting him because he's not making that much money. He's on a rookie contract, not in a first-round position, so he's going to be back and certainly have a chance to be a contributor on this team. So those guys probably figure in somewhere here. I still think you got to go out and get a running back. I could see it be a veteran, considering those two guys are pretty young, or I could see it come in the draft. I don't think you're going to see them pick somebody at number 1 in the running back spot because it's just not a value pick in the NFL. Now, if they trade down, which is something that I think is a possibility and a lot of people like, maybe you sneak into the first round with that. If not, I think there's the possibility to pick up a pretty good back later on in this draft, maybe the second or the third round that can really help you. And part of what John Robinson's job as the GM is going to be able to figure out how to get some guys in the second, in the third, and the fourth round that can be really good players for you. The Titans haven't done that in recent years, and that's a big reason why they don't have enough talent and don't have enough depth. That's a charge that John Robinson certainly faces. And the last point on that, too, is this, that I think when you look at the Titans right now and you look at the mock drafts, people are going to throw out names, but when you talk about Tunsil and you talk about Bosa, I think at the moment, for the most part, people are saying that Laramie Tunsil is my number 1 player in the draft. He's the best player on my board, therefore the number 1 team at the top of the draft is taking him. Or Joey Bosa is the best player in the draft, therefore the Titans selecting 1 are going to take him. That's not always how it works, especially when you're not looking at a quarterback position there. There's going to be a lot of fluid movement when you talk about draft picks after the combine, through these guys' individual workouts. And once we see free agency, what do the Titans fill in free agency? That happens next month in March. That's going to dictate a lot about what they decide to do with that pick and ultimately who they decide to take at number 1 or wherever they end up selecting.
I have a second point regarding the ownership with Miss Amy Adams Strunk. A lot of people are really upset with her over retaining Mike Mularkey, bringing in 18 and 36 coaching records since he's been in the league. There's just a lot of heat being thrown at her. Does she need to maybe sell the franchise? I mean, what needs to happen to get this team back to somewhat of a level of respectability? I mean, 2-14, 3-13, that ain't gonna cut it now. And you can't blame it all on her, but at the same time, is she really somebody who we need to keep around? I mean, but I mean, it's been a lot of mess in the bench.
Yes, Seth, a lot of people want to know that. The number one thing is it's not a decision we get to make. It's her team. So she can decide whether she wants to sell it or what she wants to do with it. She released, and I think this was the smart of the Titans, because I've been pleading for a long time for her to make a statement. Tell fans how she feels, what she wants, what she's looking for. They finally released a video last week that gave you a little bit of an insight to that. You can find it on TitansOnline.com. I think that was smart. People want to hear from her. They want to know that she's invested in this team. They want to know that she's in pain when they lose, just like fans in the city and the state are invested and in pain when the Titans lose. I think she began to show that a little bit last week. We need more. We need to see more of that from Amy Adams-Strunk and from this Titans building. But I will say this in her defense. Since she's taken over the team last March, she has removed the head coach, she has removed the general manager, and she hired a president of the team. Those are the three most important positions. If you want to add a fourth, it's quarterback. And they also went out and drafted the franchise quarterback in Marcus Mariota. She has made about as much change as one person could make in a 10-month process of being the owner of an NFL team. Now, it didn't mean immediate success, and it took a little time to do all of that. But I think her actions speak that she's pretty invested here. Now, if your complaint is that you're not sure that her investment will lead to wins in the future, you don't like Mike Mularkey, you don't like John Robinson or Mariota or whatever you don't like. If you don't like the decisions and the hires this point and don't think it will make any difference, that's one thing. But I think it's unfair to criticize and lump her in with the end of the Bud Adams tenure or what happened when Tommy Smith was running the team. She is her own person. She showed her frustration in her moves. She's not a real vocal person. And that's how she's going to make her moves. That's how she's going to operate this team. And I think she deserves, based off of what she did in her first year, a little bit of space now to see how these moves pan out. Is John Robinson a good GM? Does he draft well for this team? If they get players, can Mike Mularkey coach them better than the teams that he's had that has had no talent in Jacksonville or here last year as the interim coach and even to a degree in Buffalo? Those are the questions now, and it's going to take a little bit of time to figure that out. Let's go to Fred. Fred, good evening. You're on SportsLine. Hello, Fred.
Hello.
Yeah, you're on.
Well, I've watched the last 50 Super Bowls. I've watched every last one of them. And I'm going to say, right off the top of my head, is that the wins in the Super Bowl are controlled out of Las Vegas. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but the bookies control 80 to 85% of the football games. Most of your sports are controlled by the bookies. So if anyone thinks because Denver won the Super Bowl, because Peyton Manning played so well, he didn't play that well. It was made for him. It was set up for him. He was picked to win it by the bookies. Everybody know anytime you are betting on a team that's the underdog and the line goes to 7 points, you could almost bet your bottom dollar that that team is going to win the game. I've seen this for over. Now, the first 20 games of the Super Bowl, I'm going to say it was pretty straight. It wasn't a lot of hanky-panky going on. But for the last 25, the bookies controlled every move. The point spreads, over and under, they control that. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but I watched it real close, and I guarantee the books control those games, control most of the sports.
Well, Fred, we appreciate the call. Look, I've said oftentimes that the folks in the desert are the smartest people in sports because they study this thing and they're making money off of this. I think they're really good at what they do in terms of drawing up lines and handicapping things and drawing people in to bet. I think that's all real, but I don't think they're controlling. It's not a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial where they hit a button and it goes to overtime, or they cause Peyton Manning to throw a touchdown pass or Cam Newton to fumble and the Broncos recover. I've been around this stuff, on the field, in the press boxes. I talk to enough people on the inside. It just doesn't seem plausible when you know that many people that somehow these things are rigged. It's just too big. There's too much going on. There's too much scrutiny of it that's going to happen. Now, there are some sports out there that have certainly been rigged. We've seen the stories out there. But the big money changes and the big bets out there in Vegas generally are lower tier sporting events that get less of the scrutiny. Frankly, have less of a watchdog on top of them. Not the big money games. It's not the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl or the Final Four or something like that. That's not where you're betting to make money or trying to pull a fast one on the public if you're Vegas or a bookie or whatever. So, while I do think Vegas is very smart, I'd be hard-pressed. I'd need to see some real evidence to think that something nefarious was going on in terms of the Super Bowl and who was winning those games. Let's sneak Dano in here real quick. Dano, good evening. You're next up here on SportsLine.
Hello, how you doing?
Dan, what's happening?
Hey, man. Gotta tell you one thing. I love Cam Fred. I'm trying to be nice. What he did is he doubled down on Carolina. But just have to say that. Defense wins championships. Yeah, it's an old moniker, but it is absolutely true.
It is true.
And correct. And Peyton Manning controlled the game, knew his age, knew his injuries. But the only point I wanted to bring to this table, he might only be 26 years old, but from the very beginning of the game, Cam Newton, with all due respect to him, played before 1 billion people. And his attitude from the very first snap of the game, the weight of the Super Bowl was upon his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And he could not produce. Now, will he become one of the greatest ever? It's a good chance. Who knows? He's so young, and let's hope he stays healthy. Because I love to hate quarterbacks against teams that I hate. I hate Tom Brady. Look what he does. I mean, look at him as an athlete. You have to respect him.
Sure.
And what he has done. But the Denver Broncos, the smartest move they made was Wade Phillips. Head coach, he blows. But as a defensive coordinator, he needs to be feared. He's brilliant. I think it's strange because if I'm incorrect, I might be, but a lot of times when you're promoted to a head coach, you have to be a very successful defense coordinator. Is that right?
Usually a coordinator. That's generally the proving ground, yes.
Exactly. And we've seen his track record as a head coach, but you bring him back down to a defensive coordinator, he's brilliant.
Sure.
Maybe sometimes in coaching, you don't need to be bumped up to be the HC too early. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, congratulations to Carolina. A lot of family fun betting going on. It was a great game. One thing that was really sad, and once again, he's only 26, but his press conference, I know it's not talked about too much, that was sad.
I agree, and I said it earlier, Dan, that if there's one thing to complain about Cam, and I'll defend all the actions, I'll defend the dancing and the having fun and all of that stuff. If there's one thing to complain about, it's that when the going got tough and they finally hit adversity in this great season of theirs, in this great season of his, he didn't step up to the mic and own it. Cam, you're a superstar. You're an MVP of the league. Yesterday wasn't on you. No one's saying that, but we need you to step up and be an MVP in the postgame. And look, that's a tough spot. We don't need the most thoughtful answers you've ever had. We don't need you to be totally gracious in that moment. I get that it's emotional. But what you got to do is you got to act like the hundreds of millions of people around the world who are watching and who pay your salary, buy their tickets and everything that they do, and the media there that facilitate all that for those people. You got to give them some level of respect that they're doing a job, that they're part of this whole cog that makes you the superstar and allows you to dance and give away footballs and all of those things. And he didn't do that yesterday, and that's frustrating. And I think the other point about Cam that you made is I do think he showed his inexperience yesterday. Cam Newton's a better quarterback right now than Peyton Manning is. He's just better. He's a better athlete. He's got the better arm at this point. He's just a better quarterback in the NFL today than Peyton Manning is. But Peyton Manning has been in that position before, and he has showed up, and he's been under the spotlight. He's been in those games, and right from the first throw yesterday, he was on the money. He's not what he was. He's not vintage Peyton, but he was ready for the stage and ready for the atmosphere yesterday. Cam looked a little rattled, especially once he got hit. Next time he's back, I expect him to be better than that. Time for a break. We'll be back after this.